It's a philosophy of life. It's a theory of understanding about the person, you see. It's an analytic technique, and it's a body approach. So it's all those combined. And one of the interesting things about the philosophy is that it regards health as synonymous with physical health and mental health. There is no distinction between them in this point. It's a holistic approach. And physical health is not the absence of symptoms, like a headache or trouble with your heart or something like that. It's a certain quality in the body. And the quality that's best described is grace. And the form is beautiful. So harmony and form and grace and movement are the outward expressions of a healthy person. Feelings are body phenomena. They're not thoughts. Thinking hasn't got any basic feeling quality. See, that comes from the body. If you have very painful feelings in your body, very painful, very much fear, very much sadness, then you cut off the feelings because you can't stand them. They're too frightening. And then you go into your head. It's as simple as that. Now, the only way you can get back into your body is to face to go into these very deep, painful feelings. If you don't go that deep, then you say, the body work doesn't mean that much. It's on that deep level that the body work comes alive for you. So I can see those things in people. And when I work with people, I help them get into those feelings and work through them. I think the development from Freud goes through, Reich and Lowen. I don't know where to go after there. That's the big contribution that I've made with that understanding of connection to the ground. But that means that in the work I do, I bring people down to reality, not up to their heads and into their power, orientation.
He told me about one session in Reich's presence where he was lying on the bed. This would probably be a couple months into the therapy. And he was breathing. And he was just totally compelled, moved, because it was involuntary, to get off the bed, stand next to the bed, reach his hands way back, stretch back, and smash the bed. Reich just sat there and watched him. But when he told me the story, I said to him, Al, that's when bioenergetics was born. I said to him, Al, do you feel you've healed your mind-body split? And he said to me, fundamentally, yes. I feel I've healed my head-body split. But it takes work every day to maintain it. And he did. He would do the hitting and kicking. I said, show me. And he takes his right hand and his right leg, raises him, goes down, he goes 1, takes his left hand, raises him, and it goes 2. I said, Al, that's not 2, that's 1, both sides. And he kind of looked at me, and I dropped it, but I laughed. So he did 250 kicks every day. And then when he was 80, he did instead of 500, he did 200, which was equal to 100. But he worked it every day. He left a Judaic, neurotic, driven, sexually terrorized, slightly paranoid Russian background into having the drive to be famous.
When we used to give all those workshops in New York City, he had an office on 36th Street south of Grand Central. Then we worked in a loft. They had rented a top of a building someplace near there. And so we were together all the time. At night, I slept on the couch in the waiting room, and Lowen slept on the mattress in his office. So we would often walk around New York at night and talk while we were walking. And I remember, must have been in the early 80s, something like that we were walking, and I said, Al, I've read I think at the time I'd read The Language of the Body 5 or 6 times. And I said, every time I read it, I get more out of it. He said, Frank, the amazing thing is the same thing happens to me. So that means to me that he was a creative genius, huh? And it came out of him, and he really didn't realize everything that he was writing, huh? So he could read it again later and see another dimension in it than he did while he wrote it. I'll tell you another story that makes me think about his complete preoccupation when he was teaching. One time so this was way in the early years when we did the workshops. It was at the loft. I remember at the loft, and it was a Friday night or Saturday night. And so he started working with a patient. And then he got so interested on talking about a point, he just got lost in telling the people about whatever it was. The patient was standing there, and all of a sudden, the patient fainted. I think he was really tired of standing there, but I think he was kind of shocked that Lowen just forgot him, because Lowen used to teach that way. He would work with a patient and then stop in the middle and talk. I never could do it. So I was the guy then that had to make contact with the patient, and Lowen just looked down at the guy like, what in the world are you doing on the floor? Because he was so focused on getting his ideas across to the group in teaching that he completely forgot the patient for a few minutes. In the early days, Lowen did do that. He did a lot of pressing on tense muscles, especially, for example, in the neck, to get people to scream, and other places. And sometimes he tried very hard to get a breakthrough emotionally by pressing on the muscles. But when he was older, I would say the change came in his 70s, and he really changed remarkably. And he told me that he realized that he had tried too hard to help people. He really did all that pushing on the muscles to try to help them mobilize emotions more quickly. And he realized, which was the truth, because I knew it in some cases, that sometimes there was a rebound, not consciously necessarily, but that the patient closed in again after the opening up. And he realized that in the long run, most of the time it was not constructive. So he really changed in his later years.
When he wanted somebody to breathe hard and stay with some strenuous position he had asked them to be in, he could be relentless. He'd say, I can remember him saying, breathe, for God's sakes, breathe. And I thought I'd been breathing there for a half hour and could never breathe any more fully. And he'd be right there saying, for God's sakes, you're not breathing. Get that breathing going. Don't give up. And he would just, and I and other people would go to him for that. I think there'd be very few other people who could get away with pushing that hard and being that relentless about keeping one in a strenuous position, or keeping one kicking, or keeping one working on some hitting that he thought the person was giving up on too soon. And people went to him for that, and people welcomed that from him, and he got amazing results. Most of us couldn't be that firm and that strong and that absolutely tyrannical in pushing somebody to their nth degree, but he could. And then the other side was to look in his eyes and to see his softness and to see his caring and to see his way of being present and earnestly wanting each of us to get beyond our brokenness. I don't know how to say it. It was golden. It was so lovely. My husband and I were training a particular group in Boston, and we decided to call Al and ask if we could bring the group down and have a day with him. And he said from the beginning, the body work is all that matters. This is what he said in this particular meeting. So you all have to work with your bodies. And he got people working with their bodies, and we had a morning, and we had said to the group, he's in his 90s, and if he gets tired or he needs to stop, we might end up doing something else in the afternoon. Well, the morning, I can't remember the specifics, but he had people working in their body all morning. He did some individual sessions with people. We were all delighted. It came to be lunchtime, and he said, here's where we're going to go. Here's what I think the best place to go. It's this place that has pizza and beer, and they'll have food that everybody will like. A lot of the people in the group were kind of eating carefully. They didn't want to be too full, and they didn't want to be too uncomfortable with their food, so we were all selecting food very comfortably, and Al orders beer and pizza. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be the end of our day. This food's going to weigh him down. The alcohol is going to be problematic for him. Too many carbohydrates. I have all my ideas about nutrition going through my brain. I say nothing. He's having a delightful time chatting with people. And then he leaves a little bit early. And I think, oh, good, he's going to take a nap. He needs to sleep this off. So about a half hour after he's left, we come back, and I say, did you have a good rest? And he looked at me. He was kind of mad. He said, no, I didn't need to rest. He was kind of mad that I had even assumed it. And then he continued for the whole afternoon to work with us. That was Al.
When I first met him, it was Dr. Lowen, and I was from the formal, professional background where doctors were doctors. He always said doctor. I remember when I first went to the first workshop in which they were going to select the first trainees. I went out to dinner with another guy who eventually became a big guy in bioenergetics. And we would say, do you call him Dr. Lowen? I said, yeah, I call him Dr. Lowen. Do you call him Dr. Lowen? Yeah, right. Well, a couple of months later, I was calling him Al, and like everybody else was. And I don't know why, other than it wasn't a problem for him. He liked it, I guess. Everybody, when I first started training, I want to know what my character is. Stand me up there and give me a body reading, and I want to know my character, because that's what Al had done to all these people, and they all wanted to know more of that. In fact, we all did. That slowly diluted to more of a therapy process, a group process. In the end, he was saying, character, I don't know about that stuff. And I said, well, what are you talking about? He says, you have to know that person who's in front of you in that moment as a full being. And don't just rely on this gross understanding and doing something about a masochistic character. Now, that was his teaching towards the end. He saw it might be understood and misused, but I think maybe he saw the value of working in the here and now or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. It is very successful as long as it's maintained the rest of your life. As long you can keep improving in whatever stage of life you're in if you maintain your exercises and your opening of your life, and you're seeking to reduce pain and to embrace pleasure in a wholesome way. As Al would say, well, you can loosen up a character so that it's not fixed, but you'll return to it in time to stress, but you'll know about it, and then you can get around it again or exercise it out.
We always said bioenergetics will always have people who want to work with it and like to work with it, but it will never be very popular and very recognized because it's too radical. These were his words. It's too radical. It questions too much the basic cultural values, success, money, power, doing. And his big fear wasn't, and it was my concern, and sometimes again and again is my concern, I could say we should be recognized more, But when it comes to the question of how many or to what degree we are ready to give up basic concepts or basic ways of working in order to be recognized, I'm getting a little stiffer. If we dilute it, we probably get recognized, but what is left then for the recognition? You have one scream and you're free. And somehow bioenergetics could support this illusion, and did in some people, because he was fast, in identifying problems. He was fast and had strong techniques getting you into it. But on the same hand, even in those days, he had a very fine understanding about the whole dynamics, and he himself, as far as I remember, never promoted the idea. That's a quick and easy. He was not appearing as a magic healer, like I press the button now and you leave the stage and your problems are gone, like this kind of healing thing. He was not like this. He couldn't imagine a meaningful therapeutic process or helpful therapeutic process being faster than at least 7 years.
When you worked with Lowen, at least the experience I had of is tremendous connection with your body. You really felt your body when you worked with Lowen, and he made my body sing. My body felt so alive. It was an incredible grounded high, and I need to emphasize that. I always felt grounded after I worked with him, and it was like going to, if I was an instrument, it was like going to a piano tuner or a violin tuner, and it would tune up your body, and your body could just sing and hum and vibrate, and it was just a very alive feeling at the end of the session. Most sessions, he did have a very strong presence. There are certain people that could connect with him easier than other people, and I think that the people that could connect with him had better therapeutic experiences with him. I wrote an article on the therapist use of self, where I talk about how impressed I was with Lowen using his personality as a tool of therapy, and he interpreted it as being very psychopathic, as a technique where a therapist was using his will and his intellect to make therapeutic interventions. And I had a big discussion with him and told him that it's not that the therapist is using himself in a pathological way, but they're using their sense of self because they have a reflective understanding of their personality on the therapeutic process. So I don't know if Lowen realized just how much he was using himself in a good way, you know.
To do bioenergetic analysis, you have to have one real principle: faith in nature, faith in your body, faith in your feelings, and faith in life.